Welcome to The Silent Verdict.
With Clara Monroe and Elias Gray.
All right, picture this. You've booked what you think is the perfect long-term stay, but then it all just spirals into a total digital nightmare. We're talking a huge bill and evidence that, well, just doesn't make any sense.
So could your vacation really end with a fraudulent 12,000-pound bill that's based on fake photos? It sounds crazy, right? But for one guest, this became her reality. And her story, it shines a massive spotlight on a really modern problem. What do you do when the photo proof we all trust might just be a total fake? So here's how we're gonna break it down. We'll start with how the stay went sour, then get into that massive 12,000-pound claim. We'll look at both sides of the story, pinpoint the crack in the evidence, and finally, get to the final word on the whole thing.
Okay, so our story kicks off with an academic from London. She books an apartment in Manhattan for a 2.5-month study trip. Everything seems fine, but about 7 weeks in, she starts feeling unsafe. So she decides to cut the trip short and head home.
So you've got the two main people here. On one side, there's the guest. She's an academic in New York for her studies. And on the other, the apartment owner. And he's not just any host, he's a super host. You know, that little badge that's supposed to mean you're in good hands. So on the surface, this looks like a totally standard, pretty low-risk booking.
But right after she leaves early, things just explode. The host gets in touch with Airbnb, and he's got a huge, and I mean huge, damage claim against her.
Get this. The host claimed she caused over 12,000 pounds worth of damage. I mean, can you even imagine? That's just a staggering amount of money for any traveler to face.
And the list of alleged damages, it was long. We're not talking about a scratch here or there. This was everything. A cracked coffee table, a stained mattress, a busted robot vacuum, a damaged sofa, microwave, TV, even the air conditioner. I mean, according to the host, the place was basically a total wreck.
So you're probably wondering, what did Airbnb do? Well, after what they called a careful review of all this evidence from the host, they actually sided with him. Now, they didn't grant him the full 12 grand, but they still hit the guest with a bill for over 5,000 pounds. Ouch.
And this is where we get to the real heart of the conflict. You've got the host with his photos as proof, but then you have the guest, and her story is completely different. It's that classic he said, she says situation, but this time with a very modern digital twist.
So the host's argument was pretty straightforward. Look at the photos, she did the damage, she needs to pay. But the guest? She was just as firm. She denied all of it. She was convinced this was just the host getting back at her for leaving early. And here's the kicker. She had an eyewitness who saw the apartment when she left and could back her up.
And she was really confident about this. She told Airbnb straight up, hey, I can give you testimony from an eyewitness who was with me at checkout. They can swear under oath about the condition we left the place in. She said her witness would confirm it was left cleaned, undamaged, and in good order. But you know what? Her offer was just ignored.
So Airbnb had already made up its mind. The case was basically closed. And for most people, that would have been the end of it. But not for her. She wasn't going to just let it go. She went back to the one thing this whole entire claim was built on: those photos.
And this right here is where the whole case just cracks wide open, because she found what she called clear signs of fabrication. It wasn't just a gut feeling that something was off. No, she was convinced she could actually prove these photos were fake.
So what did she see? What was the one tiny detail that Airbnb's careful review completely missed? The one thing that could bring this whole house of cards crashing down. It was the coffee table. This was the smoking gun. See, the host had sent in multiple photos of this supposedly cracked wooden table, but when she looked closer, she noticed something impossible. The cracks, they were different in each picture. Think about it. A real crack in wood doesn't just change its pattern from one photo to the next. This wasn't real damage. It was a digital fake. And that brings us to the tech at the very center of this story. We're talking about digitally altered evidence. You know, images manipulated with software, often using AI. And this stuff, it isn't just for Hollywood special effects anymore. The software is cheap, it's easy to get, and you don't need to be a genius to use it. Which means
Creating a totally convincing but completely fake photo of damage is, well, it's terrifyingly easy. So now she has this incredible discovery. She's not giving up. She takes her whole story and her proof of the faked photos straight to the Guardian newspaper. And what happens when a major newspaper starts asking a big company some tough questions? Well, the entire dynamic shifts completely.
And it worked. All of a sudden, her appeal was accepted. Now, at first, Airbnb tried offering a £500 credit, then a partial refund of about $854. She refused both. And finally, they caved. They reversed the whole thing and gave her a full refund of all $5,314. Not only that, the host got an official warning and his nasty review of her was taken down. A complete and total win.
So let's just recap the timeline here, because it's pretty wild. First, you have the initial ruling against her, based entirely on those photos. Then, her appeal, where she literally points out the fake evidence, gets completely ignored, and then boom, the media gets involved, and suddenly there's a full reversal. It just goes to show you how much that external pressure really mattered in the end. But this story is about so much more than just one bad host on one platform. This points to a way bigger problem. Insurance companies, they're seeing a huge spike in fraudulent claims that use faked photos. It shows how easily the power dynamic on these platforms we all use can be twisted and exploited. And it raises a massive, massive challenge for everyone. Companies, even the courts. How on earth do you verify digital images when seeing is believing just isn't true anymore?
So, yeah, this guest got her money back, which is great. But her case pulls back the curtain on this huge vulnerability we all face in our digital lives. I mean, if a simple photograph can't be trusted, if it can just be altered to tell a completely different story, it leaves us all with a really tough and honestly a deeply personal question. In a world where truth can be edited, who or what can you really believe?